She found him slumped against a steel shutter, white suit soaked black with blood, clutching 3 newborns like they were the only things keeping his heart beating. He was dying, and he was pointing a gun at her face. The rain had been punishing the warehouse district for hours, the kind of late autumn storm that turned concrete into mirrors and seeped cold through every layer of cheap polyester. Kaylee Thompson stared through the fogged windshield of her delivery van, watching the wipers drag uselessly across the glass. The dashboard clock read 11:47 p.m. She'd been moving since her 6 a.m. shift at the campus cafeteria, then straight to her 3-hour lab rotation, then into the app grind without stopping for food. She was 2 years into nursing school. Technically, she'd missed 4 classes this month. Her clinical supervisor had pulled her aside last week with that look, the one that said, "You're drowning, and we both know it." Kaylee's feet throbbed inside her worn-out sneakers. Her stomach had been gnawing at itself since the protein bar she'd eaten at noon, splitting it into thirds to make it last through tomorrow. Before we dive deeper, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your support keeps these stories alive, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The app pinged. You have arrived. Deliver to Loading Dock 7, rear entrance. Tip, $180. Kaylee's breath caught. That tip wasn't real. It couldn't be. But if it was, it meant she could pay her overdue electric bill before they shut it off. It meant her student loan payment wouldn't bounce on Friday and trigger another $35 fee she couldn't afford. It meant she could buy actual groceries instead of ramen and day-old bagels from the donation bin. She grabbed the insulated bag from the passenger seat. Expensive order. Somebody's late-night indulgence from the kind of restaurant that plated food like architecture. The receipt inside showed $200 worth of sushi that would probably sit in a break room fridge until it spoiled. Kaylee killed the engine. The silence hit wrong. No machinery hum, no security lights sweeping the perimeter, just rain hammering metal and the distant growl of the interstate. She'd delivered to warehouses before. They usually had guards, cameras, that low buzz of a place that never fully shut down. This one felt gutted, hollow. Just drop it and go, she thought. Clock out, go home, sleep. But that $180 tip. Kaylee pulled her hood up and stepped into the rain. It struck like glass shards, cold and vicious. The loading dock rose ahead, a concrete platform built into the building's side. The overhead light was dead. The guard booth sat empty, its window black. Her sneakers splashed through puddles as she moved closer. The insulated bag felt heavier with each step, like it was filling with something other than food. Something in her gut twisted. 2 years of nursing school had taught her to trust that feeling. The same instinct that made her check a patient's breathing before the monitors alarmed. The same instinct that noticed when someone's skin tone shifted wrong. She was 15 feet from the dock entrance when she heard it. Crying. Not just crying. The raw, desperate wail of an infant in distress. 3. Voices, actually. 3 babies. Kaylee froze. The insulated bag slipped from her hands and hit the wet pavement with a dull thud. She didn't even notice. Hello? Her voice came out smaller than she meant it to, swallowed by rain and distance. Is someone there? The crying spiked, terrified, abandoned, primal. Kaylee's feet moved before her brain caught up. She rounded the corner of the loading dock, her eyes fighting to adjust to the darkness. The security light from the main building barely reached here, casting everything in sickly yellow shadows. Then she saw them. 3 car seats sat on the rain-slicked concrete, tucked partially under a fire escape overhang. The babies inside couldn't have been more than a few weeks old. Their tiny faces were red and scrunched, their cries ragged and desperate, the sound of newborns who'd been screaming too long. But it was the man beside them that made Kaylee's heart stop. He was slumped against the steel shutter, one hand locked around the handle of the nearest car seat. Even in the dim light, she could see the blood, dark and thick, spreading across his white suit jacket, mixing with rainwater but too viscous to wash away. His suit was pristine beneath the damage. She could tell it cost more than her entire semester's tuition. Dark hair slicked against his forehead. Tattoos climbed his neck from beneath his collar. Intricate, serpentine, deliberate. A black sedan sat 30 feet away, its front end crumpled into a support column, steam still rising from the hood. "Oh my God." Kaylee dropped to her knees beside him. Cold water soaking through her jeans instantly. She barely felt it. Sir, can you hear me?" His eyes fluttered open, dark, almost black in the shadows, filled with pain and something else that made her pulse hammer in her throat. Fear. Not for himself, for the babies. "Leave." His voice was barely a rasp, heavy with an accent she couldn't place. Korean, maybe. His hand moved, slow, shaking, and Kaylee's blood turned to ice. He was holding a gun, the barrel lifted, wavering, pointed at her chest. "Leave," he rasped again, "or die." Kaylee's hands were already pressing against his shoulder before her mind could stop her body. Warm, wet, arterial blood. She'd seen enough in clinical rotations to know this was bad. The wound was still bleeding, though slower than it must have been at first. But his skin was cold. Too cold. His breathing shallow and uneven. "You need a hospital." The words came out automatic, trained. "I need to call 911. No." The gun steadied slightly, his jaw clenched. "No police, no hospital. They'll find the children." The babies were screaming now, a sound that ripped at something buried deep in Kaylee's chest. She looked at the steel shutter behind him. It was locked from the outside, chains visible even in the dark. He wasn't hiding here. He was trapped here. Her mind raced. 2 years of nursing school before she ran out of money, before her younger brother got arrested and she had to cover his bail to keep him out of jail, before she'd spent a night in the ER watching a gunshot victim her age bleed out on a stretcher because the ambulance took too long, before she'd stood in a hospital hallway listening to a doctor tell a mother her son was gone and realizing she couldn't do this, couldn't survive a life where she failed people over and over. If I'd just known more, if I'd just been faster, if I'd just... Please. The word left his lips like a prayer. The gun lowered, his strength failing. Please. Kaylee looked at the babies, looked at this man who was dying but still held on to them with everything he had left, looked at the locked shutter and the empty guard booth and the smoking car. Every rational thought screamed at her to run, to call for help, to do the legal thing, the safe thing. But she thought of her brother's voice on the phone last year, saying, "You're the only person who didn't give up on me." Okay. The word left her mouth before she could stop it. Okay. "But we're moving now. Can you stand?" He nodded. It was probably a lie. Kaylee looked at the babies. "Are they yours?" Something flickered in his eyes. Pride, even through the agony. "My children," he breathed. "Dante, Lucia, Marco." "Then Dante, Lucia, and Marco are coming too." Kaylee grabbed the first car seat, heavier than she expected. She set it carefully where the rain couldn't reach, then grabbed the second. Her arms burned. She returned for the third, her back screaming in protest. Then she came back to the man, sliding her shoulder under his good arm. "On 3. My van is 40 feet away. You're going to make it. Understand?" He nodded again. 1, 2, 3. They rose together. His weight nearly buckled her knees. He was tall, easily 6'2", solid muscle beneath the ruined suit. He bit back a sound of pain, and Kaylee felt him trembling. Step by agonizing step, they made their way toward her van. Kaylee's lungs burned. Her legs shook. She kept talking, partly to keep him conscious, partly to keep herself from screaming. "I'm Kaylee, by the way. Kaylee Thompson. I'm a nursing student. Well, sort of. I'm still enrolled, but I've missed a lot of classes. I remember enough, though. I remember enough to keep you alive." His head lolled slightly against her shoulder. "Quarto," he whispered. "What?" "My name. Quarto Fiorentini." Kaylee didn't recognize it. She didn't know that name would soon be burned into her memory. She didn't know she'd just become the only thing standing between him and 3 newborns, and a syndicate that wanted them all dead. She only knew one thing: she wasn't going to let them die. Not tonight. Kaylee's apartment was a 4th-floor walk-up in a building that should have been condemned years ago. She half-carried, half-dragged Quarto up 3 flights of stairs while the triplets wailed in their car seats, one trip at a time. By the time she got all 4 of them inside, her vision was spotting, and her hands were shaking so badly she could barely turn the deadbolt. Quarto collapsed onto her futon the second she guided him to it. Blood had soaked through his white jacket, spreading across his shirt, dripping onto her threadbare cushions. She didn't care. She was already moving, grabbing her emergency kit from under the bathroom sink, the one she'd kept from her clinical days, even though she'd sworn she'd never use it again. "Stay with me," she said, kneeling beside him. Her hands worked on autopilot, cutting away his jacket, peeling back his shirt. The bullet wound was high on his shoulder, through and through. Clean entry, messy exit. He'd lost a lot of blood, but if she could stop the bleeding, keep infection out. "The children," Quarto rasped, his eyes fighting to focus. "They're right here. They're safe." Kaylee glanced at the 3 car seats lined up near her kitchen counter. The babies had exhausted themselves crying and now lay quiet, watching her with dark, wide eyes. "I'll check on them in a second. Right now, I need you to stay conscious." She flushed the wound, packed it with gauze, wrapped it tight. Her hands remembered what her mind had tried to forget. Quarto hissed through his teeth but didn't scream, didn't move, just watched her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. It was impossible not to see them. With his shirt cut away, the tattoos were everywhere, climbing his neck, spreading across his chest and shoulders, like a map written in ink and secrets. Serpents coiled around symbols she didn't recognize. Numbers, coordinates maybe. Letters in Korean and Italian tangled together in patterns that felt deliberate, coded. "What are these?" she whispered, her fingers accidentally brushing one as she taped the bandage. "Insurance," Quarto said quietly. "Everything the syndicate wants is written on my skin. Account numbers, routing codes, names of every traitor who sold us out." His jaw tightened. "They need me alive to decode it, but they'll kill me the second they extract it." Kaylee's hands stilled. "Who's they?" "Someone inside my own family." His voice was bitter, raw. "Someone close enough to know my schedule. Close enough to hack a delivery app and send you to that exact location." His eyes locked on hers. "You weren't random, Kaylee. You were chosen, disposable, a witness they could blame when my body turned up." The words hit her like cold water. "Wait!" Kaylee's breath caught. "If they hack the app, they know I took you. They know where I—" A sound. Faint. Deliberate. Footsteps in the hallway outside her door. Kaylee's blood turned to ice. She looked at Quarto. His hand was already moving toward the gun tucked in his waistband, his face pale but alert. "How many exits?" he whispered. "One." Her voice barely worked. "The door." The footsteps stopped. Right outside. Kaylee's heart hammered so hard she thought it would crack her ribs. She looked at the triplets. Dante, Lucia, Marco, sleeping in their car seats. Tiny and perfect and completely unaware that death was standing on the other side of a half-inch piece of wood. Quarto's hand found hers, squeezed once. "Stay behind me," he breathed. The doorknob began to turn. The door swung open. Mrs. Chen from 4B stood in the hallway, holding a bag of garbage, her face creased with confusion as she stared at Kaylee's white-knuckled grip on the doorframe. "You okay, honey? I heard crying." "Fine!" Kaylee's voice came out too loud, too sharp. "Just babysitting. Sorry for the noise." Mrs. Chen's eyes drifted past her, toward the apartment. Kaylee shifted, blocking her view of Quarto and the blood-soaked futon. "That's a lot of babies for one night," Mrs. Chen said slowly. "Triplets. Family emergency." Kaylee forced a smile that felt like it might crack her face. "I really need to get back to them." Of course. Mrs. Chen backed away, still looking uncertain. "You call if you need anything." Kaylee closed the door, locked it, slid the chain, then pressed her forehead against the wood and tried to remember how to breathe. "That was close," Quarto said from the futon. His gun was back in his waistband, but his hand hadn't left it. "Too close." Kaylee turned to face him. Her legs felt like water. "How long until someone actually comes?" "Hours, maybe less." Quarto shifted, wincing. "They'll track your phone, your van's license plate, your employment records." His eyes held hers. "They're already building a profile, deciding how to make you disappear." "Show me," Kaylee said quietly. "Show me what you're talking about." Quarto reached into his jacket, the motion clearly painful, and pulled out a phone, cracked screen, but still functional. He pulled up the delivery app, her app, and handed it to her. Kaylee stared at the screen. The order was there, the $180 tip, the warehouse address. But when Quarto swiped to another screen, she saw the metadata underneath, code she didn't fully understand, but enough to recognize something wrong. "This order was placed from an encrypted server," Quarto said, "routed through your dispatch system to make it look legitimate, but look at the timestamp." Kaylee looked. The order had been placed 47 minutes before the restaurant was even open. "They knew your schedule," Quarto continued. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. "They knew you worked late Thursdays. Knew you'd be desperate enough to take a sketchy delivery for that kind of tip. Knew you were a nursing student, someone with just enough medical training to keep me alive, but not enough connections to be missed right away." Kaylee's hands started shaking. She set the phone down before she dropped it. "They researched me," she whispered. They looked at my life and decided I was expendable," Quarto finished. "Yes." The word hung in the air like poison. Kaylee looked at the triplets, still sleeping peacefully in their car seats, looked at Quarto, bleeding onto her futon, his tattoos like a treasure map someone was willing to kill for. Looked at her apartment, her tiny, pathetic apartment with its peeling paint and broken heater and $600 rent she could barely afford. "I was just trying to make it to Friday," she said, her voice breaking. "That's all I wanted, just make it to Friday." Quarto's expression softened. Something shifted behind his eyes. Recognition, maybe, understanding. "I know," he said quietly. "I'm sorry you're in this. I'm sorry they chose you." He paused. "But you saved my children's lives tonight. That means something to me. That means I'll do everything I can to make sure you survive this." Kaylee met his gaze, saw the sincerity there, fierce and absolute. "Do you trust me?" Quarto asked. She should have said no, should have laughed at the absurdity of the question. Instead, she heard herself whisper, "I'm starting to." 2 hours later, Dante started crying. Then Lucia. Then Marco joined in, a chorus of hunger that cut through the apartment like sirens. "They need formula," Kaylee said, checking the diaper bag Quarto had managed to grab. Empty. "There's a 24-hour store 3 blocks away. I can be back in 10 minutes. "No." Quarto tried to sit up, his face going gray with the effort. "You can't go out there. They're starving." Kaylee grabbed her jacket. "I'll be fast. Keep the door locked. Don't open it for anyone." She was out the door before he could argue. The street was empty. Too empty for midnight in the city. Kaylee walked fast, hood up, hands jammed in her pockets. The convenience store's fluorescent lights felt like salvation. She grabbed 2 containers of formula, paid cash, and turned to leave. That's when she saw him, a man in a dark jacket, standing by the magazine rack, not reading, not shopping, just waiting. Their eyes met for half a second. Kaylee's blood went cold. She walked out. Walking fast, but not running. Running meant prey. The man followed. She could hear his footsteps, matching her pace, staying exactly 20 feet behind. 3 blocks felt like 3 miles. She hit the building entrance, punched in the code, slammed the door behind her, took the stairs 2 at a time, her lungs burning, the formula containers clutched against her chest. When she burst into the apartment, Quarto had his gun drawn. "It's me," Kaylee gasped. "It's me, but someone followed me. They know where we are. There was no time to run. The babies were screaming. Kaylee's hand shook as she prepared the bottles, mixing the powder with water, testing the temperature on her wrist. She handed one to Quarto, took two herself, and they fed the triplets in tense silence. Dante drank first, eager, desperate, then Lucia, then Marco. 5 minutes later, Dante started seizing. No, 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 no. Kaylee lunged for him as his tiny body went rigid, his eyes rolling back. Lucia convulsed next, then Marco, their small limbs jerking, foam at their mouths. What's happening? Quarto's voice cracked with terror. The formula. Kaylee's mind raced, her training kicking in through the panic. It's poisoned. They poisoned the formula. She grabbed Dante, turned him on his side, stuck her finger down his throat. He gagged, vomited. She did it again, crude, desperate, but it was working, the seizures slowing. Do what I'm doing, she shouted at Quarto. Make them vomit. Get it out of their systems. Quarto grabbed Lucia with shaking hands, his face twisted with anguish. Together they worked, purging the poison, clearing airways, checking pulses. Kaylee's clinical training took over, her hands steady even as her heart shattered. 10 minutes felt like hours, but finally, all three babies were breathing normally, crying, exhausted but alive. Quarto collapsed against the wall, Lucia still cradled against his chest. His shoulders shook. His breath came in ragged gasps. He was crying, silent and devastating tears that carved lines down his face. I almost lost them, he whispered. They were going to die in front of me and I couldn't. Kaylee knelt beside him, her hand on his shoulder. But they didn't. They're alive. You kept them alive. You kept them alive. Quarto's eyes met hers, raw, broken, grateful. You saved them, again. His voice dropped. Why? Why do you keep saving us? Kaylee looked at the triplets, at Dante, Lucia, Marco, tiny and perfect and alive. Because nobody saved me when I needed it, she said softly, and I won't let that happen to someone else. Quarto's hand covered hers. We need to leave, he said. Tonight. They know where we are. Kaylee was shoving formula into a bag when she heard it. Footsteps, multiple sets, heavy boots on the stairs below, moving fast, trying to stay quiet. They're in the building, Quarto said, already moving. He grabbed Dante's car seat with his good arm, his face twisted with pain. Fire escape, now. Kaylee snatched up Lucia and Marco, her heart slamming against her ribs. They rushed to the window, and she shoved it open just as the apartment door splintered inward. Two men, guns drawn, silencers attached. Quarto fired first. The sound was deafening in the small space. One man dropped. The second ducked behind the doorframe, returning fire. Bullets punched through drywall, shattered her coffee mug, tore through the futon. Go, Quarto shouted. Kaylee climbed onto the fire escape, the metal slick with rain, the triplets screaming in their car seats. Quarto followed, firing twice more before slamming the window shut behind them. They descended into darkness, 3 flights of rusted metal that groaned under their weight. Kaylee's arms burned, her lungs screamed, but she didn't stop until her feet hit the alley pavement. Her van was parked half a block away. They ran. The Starlight Motel was the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask questions. Kaylee paid cash. The clerk didn't even look up. Room 12, ground floor, cigarette burns on the bedspread and water stains on the ceiling. It felt like paradise. Kaylee collapsed onto the bed the moment they got the triplets settled. Her whole body shook, adrenaline crash, exhaustion, terror finally catching up. Quarto sat beside her, his bandage soaked through with fresh blood. Let me change that, she whispered. She worked in silence, her hands gentle as she cleaned the wound, applied fresh gauze. Quarto watched her face the whole time, his expression unreadable. You should run, he said quietly. Take money from my wallet. Disappear. You didn't sign up for this. Neither did they. Kaylee nodded toward the triplets, sleeping in a row on the other bed. and I'm not leaving them. Kaylee, I'm not leaving you, neither. The words hung between them. Quarto's hand lifted, hesitated, then brushed her cheek. His thumb traced her jawline, achingly gentle. You're too good for this world, he whispered. Too good for me. That's not your choice to make. She leaned in, or he did. It didn't matter. Their lips met, tentative at first, then desperate. His hand slid into her hair. Her fingers gripped his shirt, careful of his wound, but pulling him closer anyway. The kiss tasted like survival, like two people who'd stared down death and decided to feel something, anything that wasn't fear. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Quarto's forehead pressed against hers. I haven't felt this in so long, he breathed. I forgot what it was like to... 3 sharp knocks on the door. They both froze. Quarto's hand went to his gun. Kaylee's pulse spiked into panic territory. Nobody knew they were here. Nobody could have followed them. Unless... A woman's voice called through the door, soft. Familiar to Quarto, clearly, because all the color drained from his face. Quarto, I know you're in there. Open the door. His lips moved soundlessly. Then he turned to Kaylee, his eyes wide with something between horror and disbelief. That's my dead wife. Quarto opened the door. The woman standing on the threshold was beautiful in the way a blade was beautiful. Sharp, cold, perfectly designed to cut. Black hair pulled into a severe ponytail, designer coat that probably cost more than Kaylee's van. And behind her, 3 men in tactical gear, rifles raised. Hello, husband, she said, stepping inside. Kaylee's breath caught. She pressed herself against the bathroom door frame, the triplets behind her in the tub where she'd hidden them, the second Quarto mouthed, hide. Sumin, Quarto's voice was flat, empty. You were dead. The car accident, I saw the reports. You saw what I wanted you to see. Sumin circled him slowly, her heels clicking on the stained carpet. Did you really think I'd let you keep everything? The syndicate, the accounts, the power? She laughed, bitter and sharp. You were always too sentimental, too weak. The triplets, Quarto said quietly. You tried to kill our children. My leverage. Sumin's eyes flashed. Those brats were supposed to die with you in that warehouse. Clean, convenient. But you had to survive, didn't you? Had to cling to life like you always do. One of the soldiers moved forward, placing a tablet in Sumin's hands. She held it up, showing Quarto photos, his tattoos, close-up shots taken from security footage. Your precious codes, she said. $30 billion in hidden accounts. Names of every syndicate member. Transaction records. All of it written on your skin like you were some kind of walking vault. She smiled. I've been trying to decode them for months, but you designed them too well, didn't you? They need your blood, your fingerprints, your voice to unlock. So you need me alive, Quarto said. For now. Sumin set the tablet down. But once I extract everything, and I will, you're worthless to me. Her gaze drifted toward the bathroom. And so is whatever pathetic little helper you picked up along the way. Kaylee's blood turned to ice. Where are my children? Sumin's voice went soft, dangerous. Safe, Quarto said. Somewhere you'll never find them. Sumin pulled a gun from her coat, pressed it against Quarto's forehead. Last chance. Where are they? Silence. Then a sound, tiny, devastating. Dante hiccuped from the bathroom. Sumin's smile was poisonous. She gestured to one of her soldiers, who moved toward the bathroom door. Kaylee backed deeper into the shadows, her arms wrapping protectively around the car seats, her heart hammering so loud she was sure they could hear it. The soldier pushed the door open, saw her, raised his rifle. Well, well, Sumin purred, stepping into view. The delivery girl. How noble of you. She crouched down, looking at the triplets with complete detachment. Such fragile little things. It would be so easy to touch them and I'll kill you myself, Quarto snarled. Sumin stood, pointing her gun at Lucia's car seat. "You're in no position to make threats, husband. Now, you're going to give me those codes, or I'm going to put a bullet in each of your children's heads. Starting with this one." She cocked the hammer. "And your little savior can watch." Kaylee moved without thinking. She threw herself over the car seats, her body covering all three triplets, her arms spread wide like she could somehow absorb bullets meant for them. "Don't," she screamed. "Please, they're just babies." Suman's gun swung toward Kaylee instead. "How touching. I suppose you'll die first, then—" The motel room door exploded inward. A figure in black tactical gear stormed through, rifle raised, moving with trained precision. Another one of Sumian's soldiers, Kaylee thought desperately, another killer. But the rifle wasn't aimed at her, it was aimed at Suman. "Drop the gun," the masked figure ordered. Male voice, young. Something about it made Kaylee's breath catch. Suman's soldiers spun, weapons raised. The room erupted into chaos. The masked gunman moved like water, fast, brutal, efficient. He shot one soldier in the knee, disarmed another with a strike to the throat. Sumin dove behind the bed, firing wildly. Quarto lunged for his own weapon. In the chaos, the masked man grabbed Kaylee's arm, hauling her and the triplets toward the door. "Move!" he shouted. That voice. "Wait!" Kaylee twisted, trying to see his face. The mask was already slipping from the struggle, and when it fell away completely, her entire world tilted. "Marcus?" Her brother stared back at her, older than she remembered. Harder, a scar running through his eyebrow that hadn't been there 2 years ago. "Hey, sis," he said, breathless. "Sorry I missed your birthday." You're working for them?" Kaylee's voice broke. "You're with the syndicate?" "They gave me a choice," Marcus said, still moving, pulling her toward the door. "Work for them, or they'd kill you. So yeah, I worked for them." His jaw tightened. "I'm the one who hacked your delivery app. I'm the one who sent you to that warehouse." The words hit like a physical blow. "You set me up?" "I tried to keep you out of it," Marcus's voice cracked. "But Suman wanted a civilian witness, someone disposable. When I saw it was you on the assignment list, I thought if I controlled it, I could protect you." A gunshot rang out. Marcus jerked backward, his eyes going wide. Blood bloomed across his chest. He stumbled, caught himself against the doorframe. Behind him, Suman stood with her gun raised, cold fury on her face. "Traitor," she hissed. Marcus turned, lifted his rifle with shaking hands, and fired. Once, twice, 3 times. Suman's remaining soldiers went down. Suman herself dove for cover, screaming orders into a radio. "Go!" Marcus gasped, pushing Kaylee toward the door. "Take the kids. Get Quarto. Run." "I'm not leaving you. You don't have a choice." Blood bubbled at his lips. He was fading, his legs giving out. But he smiled, small, sad, the same smile from when they were kids. "I told you I'd always protect you, Kay. I meant it." "Marcus!" He collapsed. Kaylee screamed his name, reaching for him. But Quarto grabbed her, pulled her back, the triplets wailing in their car seats as he dragged all of them through the door and into the night. The last thing Kaylee saw was her brother's body, still and broken on the motel room floor, and Suman, stepping over him without a second glance. "Find them," Sumin said into her radio. And this time, no survivors. They ran through the industrial district like ghosts, Kaylee clutching 2 car seats, Quarto carrying the third, despite his wound bleeding through the bandage again. Behind them, the sound of engines, shouting. The systematic search of hunters who knew their prey was cornered. There, Quarto pointed to a warehouse complex, half demolished, its windows shattered and walls tagged with graffiti. They slipped inside through a broken loading door just as headlights swept across the entrance. Inside, the darkness was absolute. Kaylee's breath came in ragged gasps. The triplets were miraculously quiet, exhausted from crying, their small bodies limp with sleep despite the chaos. "We can't keep running," Kaylee whispered. "They're everywhere. We need to call someone. Police, FBI. There's no one left to call." Quarto's voice was hollow. "Half the police are on Suman's payroll. The syndicate owns judges, politicians, and federal agents. He sank against a concrete pillar, his face gray with pain and exhaustion. My world is gone. Every safe house, every ally, every resource. She's taken it all. For the first time since she'd found him bleeding in that warehouse, Quarto looked broken. I failed them, he breathed, looking at the triplets. I brought them into this life, this violence. And now, his voice cracked. Now there's nowhere safe for them to go. Yes, there is, Kaylee said quietly. She set down the car seats, knelt in front of him, and took his face in her hands. There's us, right here, right now. We're their safe place. Kaylee, I lost my brother tonight. I lost any chance of going back to my normal life. I can't return to my apartment, my school, my job. None of it exists anymore. Her voice steadied. But I'm not running. Not from this. Not from them. Not from you. Quarto stared at her. Then, slowly, his hand covered hers. You understand what that means, he said. If you stay, you're choosing this world. The danger, the violence, running, hiding, fighting. His thumb brushed her cheek. You'll never have a normal life again. Normal was lonely, Kaylee whispered. Normal was exhausting myself to pay bills and feeling invisible and going to bed hungry. Normal was empty. She glanced at Dante, Lucia, Marco. This is terrifying, but it's not empty. Quarto pulled her close, his forehead pressed to hers. I can't promise you safety. I can't even promise you tomorrow. Then promise me tonight. I promise you tonight, he breathed. And every night after, as long as we're alive, I promise you we fight, together. Sirens wailed in the distance, more headlights cutting through the darkness outside. We need to move, Quarto said, his strength returning. I know someone, one last person who might help us, but we'll have to disappear. New identities, new life, no looking back. Kaylee stood, grabbed the car seats, and looked at him with absolute certainty. Then let's disappear. They slipped out through a service exit into the rain-soaked night, 4 souls bound together by blood and bullets and impossible choices. Behind them, Sumian's forces closed in on an empty warehouse. Ahead of them, an uncertain future, dangerous, chaotic, and utterly transformed, but together, always together.